stacking, you know, you realize that our children in our community don't engage much with toys because toys are not for them to play on their own. It's for you to sit down and play with them, and toys have a lot of, there's a lot of learning in it, a lot of mental engagement. So for a child, for a toddler, you don't need all the books, the multiplication tables and things like that. It's just about learning to through play, nursery rhymes, reading, looking at picture books, pointing at things, and so on. So it's really engaging with the child, going out, taking them out to play. As you're walking out, you're showing them, if you know, this is earthworm, this is this is that. There was a lot of research on it actually, that showed that children of middle-class families, by the time they were age 3 or so, had learned so many thousands of words compared to children from a working-class family, because they understand the role of talking to your child, of walking along. Now everybody's head is down on their phones. But you're walking along with your child and you're showing them things, you're pointing to things, you're making them see things, that is still learning. It doesn't enter and go out there. It is still part of learning. So it doesn't need to be formal. It's learning through play. There is a lot of ideas online. I put together a little schedule, and I had stars. You know, each time a child did an activity, I put a star to show that today they've done this, they've done that, they've done that. They don't need to be long activities. 5 minutes is fine, you know, and then you take a bit of a break, walk around, but it's very, very involving. You could find a lot of ideas online if you want. But some of the things I've suggested are some of the things that I did.
Thank you, Auntie. The second question, how do we get the school curriculum for a particular school year? Because you mentioned.
Okay, so the curriculum is online. Like the BBC Bite Size just has a full curriculum. The CGP has the curriculum in books, so the content in workbooks and in question books. So CGP is a very good one from primary to A levels. It's all there. If your child is in primary school, you can ask them. I've had to ask, and they've emailed it to me, or they print it out for you. But again, everything is online nowadays.
BBC Bite Size that Auntie mentioned, I used to use that a lot when I was young. It's really good because it has videos, then you have activities, and it will give you questions on the topics, and it's very child-friendly. Really definitely good. Take note of the things Auntie has mentioned. Another question, please can you explain the SAT exam? Is it done at year 2 or year 3? And is it a national standardized exam?
It is done in year 2, and it is national standardized, yeah.
And it's also in year 6, so you need
year 6 too, yeah.
And then the second one was, how best can we request a higher ability grouping so that we can set higher targets for our children?
Okay, usually you don't request it like that. The child has to prove it. As I said, the only way a student can show me what they're capable of doing is through either their enthusiasm in class. I had students who are very enthusiastic, who come back to you at lunchtime or break time to ask for help, who you can see them progressing. So that is what is called the teacher's professional judgment based on those factors, and then plus how they're doing in a test. So if a teacher thinks this child is not motivated, can't be bothered, doesn't prepare for tests, why would you move them to a top set? Yeah. No, you wouldn't move them.
Yeah, and it's like Auntie said about knowing what your child is even doing in school. I think it's really important. A lot of parents don't know what level their children are at, so you can't encourage your child to get higher if you don't even know they're in bottom set to begin with. And if you don't know that there is higher to be gained. In my first school, they used to tell my mum I was doing well, and my target was to get like a C. But in that school, a C was well. And it was only when my mum, you know, when we started doing more things in church that we realized that a C is actually not good, and you needed to get better. Exactly. And then you can then, you know, improve. Another question says, does the school rating impact the performance of my child?
Now, the school rating, depending on what the rating is, because that's a bit of a generic question. Now, if a school is requiring improvement, then it means that when Ofsted visited Because when Ofsted visit, we polish and hide things. Now, when Ofsted visited, there was no way. They did their best to present their best side to Ofsted, and it didn't work. Then I wouldn't want my child to be in a school like that. So the rating may not necessarily, but if your child is in a school that needs improvement, then you have a lot of work to do. Yes, you have a lot of work to do at home to help them do well.
Yeah.
Can I also just say, we're not saying here that a child can only do well if they go to a selective school. Please, let's get it right.
Yeah.
The reason why we shared all of this is to say that regardless of where your child is, you need that support.
Yeah.
Even whether it's a private school, a grammar school, you need, or a state school, you need that support. You need to challenge your child. You need to set high grades for them, because some teachers don't just want to see a black child doing well. That's just the truth. So they wouldn't encourage, they won't stretch you even in the private school system. So you need to know what your child is capable of achieving, push them, challenge it, ask them questions. Why should you be paying so much money and then they are telling you it is okay? No, it's not okay.
Yeah.
So yes, there's a lot of work to do if a child is in a more, if a child is in a school that is really not doing well, that Ofsted doesn't think they're doing well, you have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
The circle of people that the children relate with in school. They have negative or positive influence on them. If your majority of the children are from deprived area, the kind of behavior they will be putting off and the interest in the education which they have will be different from people who are majorly from scale area and so on. So that has an influence on them. So that's why we need to be to monitor what is going on and know the environment where the children's school are also.
Yeah. And then
That's
tied
so
in.
important. Thank you for that, Pastor.
Yeah, tied into that question, someone asked, how do you know which schools are good, or rather, which schools are good, and also what's the importance of SAT exams?
Okay, I thought we've spoken about SAT exams already. I said that SAT exams are used, the results from SAT exams are used as a baseline to help make projections. So when children come into year 7, the SAT results they come in with are used, the government has a graph against which those results are plotted to project or predict what that particular students would achieve at GCSE. And based on that, they start to set them targets. So the targets they set are based on that and ensuring that by the time they get to year 11, they have met the target based on that projection when they came into school. So you see that it works most of the time, but I always say that if a child didn't revise for a SAT exam, obviously they won't do well. So projecting that is not fair on that child. So we need to ensure that by the time they go to do a test, they are really fully prepared. We've supported them. We've held their books, asked them questions. We've taken them through past exam questions and things like that. Again, everything is online to ensure that they really are well prepared for their assessments.
Yeah. So how do you know which schools are good?
How do you know which schools are good? Okay. So you mean in this area? We are in Trafford area. So let's talk about Trafford area. So in Trafford area, there are 7 grammar schools. Very interesting how the country is stratified. In affluent neighborhood, they give them free, good schools. But in inner Manchester, which is deprived, they don't give them even a single free school. So it just helps us understand how the nation is structured. So we have the grammar schools, and even among the grammar schools, they are also in grades. So again, you can do your research, find out what children are achieving at GCSEs or A levels in those schools. Go read Ofsted report to see the 4 different categories, what the Ofsted inspectors thought of the school in each category when they went in. So that will give you an idea of the school. And then we have also lots of tables classifying schools in the north of Northwest or in Manchester and that kind of thing. It's all online. So please do your research. And also we're in a community. We have people whose children have gone through school. Please let's talk to each other. Yeah. Yes, let's not go through this alone.
Yeah,
So I think there's this
he's a doctor now in America. So I was speaking to him again 4 or 5 years ago, and he was still swearing. Because, you know, I mean, if at primary school he had developed all that habits of swearing, it never leaves you, just like what we're talking about today. So please, when we came here, you see, the school, the primary school is so fundamental. It's so fundamental because if you go into an area where the catchment is poor, that's the people that your children are going to be associating with. Their language is the language that they're going to have. So don't expect, sorry. Yeah. So don't expect any magic to happen. So it's not just about academics now, but behavior. Yeah. There was some kids, you know, I happened to, you know, meet the other day, and honestly, I couldn't imagine that maybe there'll be 2 or 3. They were swearing. I said, where did they get this from? You know, so let's be careful. When we came into this area, council gave my son gave him a school that was a bit deprived, in a deprived area, in the middle of the council estate. My wife said no. I said, you know, inside me I said, why is this woman, you know, why is this stressing? Why is he stressing? Just let him go, you know. She said, no, we have to put Somto in a private school until we're able to find a good school, a Church of England school. But the council just refused. In fact, they put us in a blacklist that we refused the school that, you know, we allocated. So for 2 years, they refused to talk to us, you know, about another school until we got a Church of England. But those 2 years, my wife said, insisted, okay, we went to a private school rather than putting him in the primary. But that's primary school. So let's not emphasize too much on secondary school because by then, you know, all the character is set. Yes, yeah. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, also in Trafford here, they have feeder schools. They have feeder schools. So, you know, if you try and get your child into a feeder primary school that fits into the different schools, then the chances again of them getting to the school are higher because they really prepare them well as well in school. Thank you so much. That's a very, very important point. Yeah.
Thank you. Another question, it says, can you please emphasize the importance of both parents helping their children to maximize their potential, especially their fathers?
That's a good one. For me, I always say that when God made it such that it takes both parents to create a child, it means that in God's plan or in God's mind, both parents were needed to raise the child together. Parenting is not easy, especially if you want to parent well, where you're following up your child, you're talking to them, you're picking up their moods and everything. It is very, very exhausting, and every parent has their role to play. A male parent has their strength and have their area, how the way they will engage with the child, and the female parent has their own role to play. So please, it is not easy for one person to do it. To have gone to work, come back, take care of the food, take care of the children. Eventually, a lot of women just give up, or they end up just being irritable and just let children do what they want to do. So please, we need to do it together. God designed it this way. Let us go through this journey together, and it's going to be really good.
Amen. It really does take a village. And, you know, earlier Auntie said about speaking to people. This is why we have a community. We've all been through stages. We've all have children. I don't have a child, but I was once a child. And, you know, we can talk and help. You know, I used to tutor for 11 plus. You might not know that if you hadn't spoken to me. So like there's things that if you speak to people, they can help you and help you on the journey, especially if you're doing it alone. It takes a village. It can be uncles and aunties who can help you as well in that journey. Another question, Auntie. Do you want to?
Can I also affirm that, you see, most of these books Auntie has been talking about, you don't have to buy them. There are parents whose children have gone through this system and they still have it. I remember Okoye came to my house a few days ago and got close to almost 20 or 30 books, and I still have more. So go to people. 3 of my kids, you know, are in the grammar school. The first one has left, the second one is about leaving, and the third one is still there. So we still have books at home. You don't have to buy. So go to people who still have these books and ask them to give you. Praise God.
Hallelujah. The next question, it says, how do you motivate or work with a child that believes she or he knows all, or they are old enough and should not be advised or corrected? So those are probably the older children.
The older children. How do you motivate an older child? I think it's very important, as Brother David said, about the foundational phases. Instilling the value of education. Let them understand the value of education. Let them love it at that phase. Then it's easier. Okay, for motivation, you could find out what they like, promise them things, I think for motivation, promise them things, expose them. I found exposure to be really, really powerful for motivation. I remember when our children were younger, when we were in Manchester, we would drive around these places. We used to call them those far places. We drive around where there are people have big houses, living in very quiet, nice places. And we'll be having conversation in the car and saying, what do you think these people did to be able to afford that? And starting to stir up desire, so that they don't think that life is in one way, but there are lots of opportunities. And I started to say, okay, if this or this person is able to afford this, then I think you think that's a life you might want to live. So just expose them to things. Whenever we travel to different places, we always seek to go to the really nice places, see what lifestyle people are affording, get them into maybe to spend a day or two with somebody in a career that they like, who's done really well in that career. They spend a day or two in a solicitor's firm, for example. It might stir up, it might motivate them. Yeah. So exposure is really, really important. Yeah.
Thank you. You mentioned earlier about you had to adapt learning styles for Jemima, for example. Mm-hmm. How do you firstly find out what learning styles there are, and then what will work for your child? Because sometimes people say, oh, my child just isn't academic, or they just don't do well in maths. Yes. So how do you do that for?
Okay, so for me I first picked up the fact that she was a slow learner. And then, so it meant we had to be patient with her. Yeah, so we agreed, my husband and I, that we would have to be patient with her. We have to let her go through something a few times. And then being in education and talking about learning styles, I was exposed to, okay, let's see what works for you. So I started, this is a text. See how you can take that text from the paper into your mind. So it was a process. We did it, okay, try something else. Try maybe a pictorial form, a mind map, something like that. Maybe read it out in a device and listen to it. So again, all these things are online. If you don't have to be in education to know them, but they are online. Yeah, that children learn differently. For us, growing up, it was all one way. But now that we know more, we know better, we encourage our children to find out what works. So once she picked up what worked for her, then she was good.
Yeah, thank you.
I also want to contribute to one in terms of exposure. I'll start from there. I had the opportunity of taking my children, during the Christmas period, their Christmas dinners. So I took my children to the Christmas dinner. They were a bit older, so the departmental Christmas dinner. So they sat with people who were dressed, and the doctors, and the conversation on the table was also sanitized because the children were there. And it did have an impact on them, and they've got to know some of the people in the department, and in fact, they still remember them up till today. And so exposure is good. Second thing I want to say is that our involvement with, if you are helping one another, helping each other. When I was in Aberdeen, I like to read, okay? So each time I went out, I would pass through a bookshop and pick a book. And I want to deliberately see how my children will react when we go to the shops, whether they will go to where books are. And they didn't. So, but one thing I realized was that, look, all the books, I wanted them to be able to read. When you read, you expand your horizon. And for children, their vocabulary increases, and they learn a lot more. And so I decided, look, what am I going to do? So I said, okay, they were in Aberdeen, we used to go to the African and Caribbean Christian Fellowship, and they were very friends together. So I decided, okay, I will start a book club So I started a book club, and there were 6 to 8 children who were there. They would come every Tuesday evening from 6 to the parents will bring their children. I will buy the books for each child and get them to read. And if they find a new word, to write it down. And then when we come together, we start from one chapter. So when they finish one book, we get another one. I find the Mapugo series very good. They are very, very easy to read, and the topics are very encouraging. I took them to the library and showed them how to get them registered in the library. And in fact, the librarian there was very impressed. I think he did something for them and got each of them to register and had a library card. So that was how, by the time we left, the children, their vocabulary has increased, and they were learning together. So they were the same group. And so let us also, when we came down here to Manchester, my daughter said, why don't you start it again? But I think I was too busy. And we were so fast spread and this thing. So the other thing I was going to suggest, I've forgotten it now, memory, but it will come back to me, and I will say, thank you very much. So that is let us learn to help support one another and this thing.
Can I also add to the reading some of the few things we've done is reading as a family? Because when you want to get children to do something, if they're struggling to do it, like, okay, put down your phones, and they're teenagers, you've never controlled phone in the house. Now we could start to do it as a group thing, that, okay, we discuss why we need to put down our phones, and then we're going to put it down from this time to this time, and we'll put it down somewhere. So we've done reading together, where everybody's reading a book, and then we talk about it. I've had to pay, when you finish reading a book, I give you £5. That's what I'm saying, reward, they call it bribery or whatever, but if you have to achieve what you have to achieve, you just have to do it. So, yeah.
Also, we're talking about both parents being involved is good, especially for boys. I'm talking about fathers now. When a boy is 11, they don't listen to their mom. They assert their own authority. And that is but then they fear the dad. So, dads, when your child is 11, that's when you come in. Because they won't listen to the mom. They won't obey the mom. There are times to this thing, but when it comes to serious things, they don't care. But when the dad speaks, they will listen. So be aware of that. And assert your authority over the child. And just getting together and, not being harsh, but try to understand them. And there are some interests that your child may have. And they may seem very weird because you don't understand. When my children were grown up, Junior, he loved dancing. And for me, when I calculate, dancing didn't do anything, But then, that was my quarrel. That was our issue with him. But so as you try to work with them, try to understand and support them in the Disney, as long as it is not evil things, just work with them. Thank you very much.
Praise the Lord. I see no reason why fathers or daddies should not be involved in the academics of their children. In all aspects, from the beginning. In fact, it should be your own job, because the Bible says the woman is a helper. It is the responsibility of the fathers. Please, the Lord will help us. Right from the small age, I took interest in my children's education. In fact, I used to teach them maths. I was teaching them maths and all the other things. So I took it as my duty. So please, daddies, it's not the woman's job, it's our job.
Thank you. You don't want to.
Even further than that, there should be coordination between fathers and mothers. Okay. So, to be able, because kids can there's no messing around. This is what the house, this is the standard of the house. No messing around. That's what we're going to do.
Hello. I just wanted to speak from a younger perspective. I don't have any children of my own, but yes. But I am someone who's been through the education system, being born here, been in primary school, which was a state school, going to private school, end of primary school. Went to private school, end of primary school to GCSEs, and then went to another state college. So I've been in different places. And I know the difference. There's a huge, huge difference between the way that they support you and teach you in private schools and how they teach you in state schools. I remember the first day that I started in Manchester High when I was 9, and I just had no idea what I was doing for the first 2 months, because everyone had been there since primary school. Everyone had, they were getting homework from 4 years old so in reception, they were getting it every weekend, and then from year 1, year 2, I think they were getting it twice a week. Whereas in the primary school that I came from, which is Brooklands Primary School in Sale, I didn't have homework for the entire time that I was there. I didn't have homework I was there from the nursery until I was 9. And so now I was thrown into the deep end and just trying to catch up, and luckily I did. But I did it because my parents, especially my dad has a passion for education and for helping people. And I'm a testament. Sam, Ola, we were all in the Saturday school. We are all a testament of parents understanding the education system, understanding being black children in this country, and them knowing that we could achieve anything, that we were not less clever, that we were not less intelligent, we weren't less focused than our white counterparts or especially the Asian counterparts. That was they were the people that were kind of the model. What were they called? Model students. Yes, exactly. So because their parents really pushed them, but but for black people, especially because they group Africans with other black people, and it's just sometimes it's not the same. The home environment isn't the same. But I just wanted to say that it's just really important from a young age to see your parents also being really interested in your life, not just education as well, in all of it. And they might fight back, but it's your job as their parents to fight them. You're in control. It is really hard. Yeah, it is really hard. And I just wanted to say about toddlers. So right now, my niece, she's 3, but she's already been to 3 schools. And I think most of you have met her. She's incredibly bright, so intelligent, really sharp. And she went to the nursery by our house. And this is someone who she basically she potty trained herself. By she was 2, just turned 2, 2.5, she stopped wearing nappies, even to bed. And everything that she does is very, very structured. And she picks up things really, she talks for England. And when she was in the nursery by our house, it just sent, every day she was coming back with accidents. They were saying that she wasn't engaging with other children, that for some reason that she was struggling with things, this and that. And my sister was just no, this doesn't sound right. My parents were this doesn't sound right. So they moved her to, now she's in a private nursery in Liverpool. And I know some people are scared of private schools because they can be really expensive. They are, but they have a lot of programs. Half of my class when I was in school, they were on bursaries, they were on scholarships, sports scholarships, sometimes sports scholarships, drama scholarships there were as well. So there's other avenues to get into private schools. But she's in this school now, and she gets homework. She gets homework every Friday that she has to do. The things that they're learning in class, they were learning about taxes the other day. She's 3, but the way that they form it though, and these are children that they're all going to, when it gets to the SATs, when they're in year 2, it's standardized. These are the children that your children will be against, So that's why it's really important, even if it's not in school, but at home, that you're putting in the work to try and get them to that point. I cannot stress it enough, and I'm testament to that, so.
Thank you. We've got another question. Sorry, I know everyone's really keen to speak, but the time is limited. Uncle, before you, Auntie, did you have a question? Oh, you don't have it anymore. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm a father of two, and my children are not here, but I don't know whether any of us has experienced this, where you're helping your child with your assignment, and all of a sudden she tells you what you are saying is rubbish, or what you are doing is like the influence from school is making her feel what you are teaching her is wrong. So now my question is, how do you, because you know what you are saying is right, it's nursery school work now, why won't I know it? Like, how do you now strike that balance between what she's learning from school and what you are helping her in achieving assignments or to do her assignments? How do you strike that balance so that she doesn't end up confused?
Yeah, that is the case for many parents from our background, where you're trying to teach, especially maths, and they're being taught here. So basically, maths especially, Brother David, you should be answering that question. Okay, let me then, if you need to add, then you add. So especially for maths, it was the same situation for us, where my husband would teach my daughter, and she was like, that's not how they taught us. So they have different ways of teaching, but what we then found useful was that when you got certain books, they show you how to work it out before they give you the problems to solve. So you could use that. It's that easy. I mean, primary school math is easy. Everybody can access it. You can look at those examples. You can even go online. There's so much online to show you how the children are being taught. Then you can model that to be able to teach your child, because it's very common. Brother David.
Yeah, what you're saying is right. For maths, especially for secondary school mathematics, I had the same problem, because when I came, in teacher training, they were saying, oh, you see, our kids are not used to, learning this way. There's a certain way, to communicate the mathematics. So I had to change from my Nigerian, way, of doing it to how it's actually being delivered here. And it's important as a parent that you also understand that it's not the rote way that we used to learn in Nigeria that they also used to learn here, especially in mathematics. So it takes some learning, but at the end of the day, it's going to, if you work with your child and the teacher, they will explain some of these things to you, especially to the structure of how maths is delivered. The maths curriculum in this country can be a bit different from what we learned in Nigeria or wherever you're coming from. So please, I'm not going to start telling you here, because it's going to be a lot of drivel, but please, talk to your teacher and see exactly what the curriculum is, and try to work ahead of the curriculum. It's important. I remember Somto is an example, in my house. He just came to me. He wasn't top set maths by year 8. He just came to me and said, look, Dad, I want you to be working. I want to work with you so that we can his target was he wanted to get to the top set of maths. And I didn't know how but I could see that he was very determined. And actually we started doing, when I come back every weekend, we had some scheduled maths lessons together. I got some resources, and we are working well above. In fact, your child's, they have an elastic memory. Don't be limited by what they call it. Who said that somebody in year 8, for example, cannot do what your GCSE, you can do it. I remember Sembe, she did her maths is it year 8 or something like that? Exactly. Yeah, so don't let anybody tell you, oh, because your child is this, therefore he can't do something more challenging. Stretch your child. I was surprised. It took less than 6 months for Somto to go from not being in top set math to going straight into top set math the next year. And then he started struggling with the Chinese guys and all of that, who is going to have the best. best person in class, so the competitiveness. So what I'm saying is, please, don't underestimate your child. Learn what the curriculum is, support them, and I'm sure, there's a lot of resources that you can, access.
Thank you. Also, just to directly answer your question, maybe you can try and find like a YouTube video where someone's explaining how to do it. Because if that person is doing the exact same thing as you, then you can say, well, this is someone who's independent and they got the same answer, so therefore I am right. But in a nice way, right? And not to like patronize your child. Or maybe have them show you how they think it's done and then say, okay, well, this is why I think it's this, that, the other. Because I think children hate feeling belittled or that you don't listen to them, but at the same time, sometimes you are right because you're the parent. So I think maybe a YouTube video trying to think of how you can say it nicer. Auntie, and then we're wrapping up. Yeah, this is the end. Firstly, before I give it to Auntie, please can we just clap for Auntie because she's been so great and she's really blessed us. Thank you. God will bless you and increase you.
Please, let's stretch our hands towards her to pray for her. I tell you, some people pay thousands to get what we get. And even if you are going to do your research yourself, you